Hey, since ChatGPT and a lot of other AI really started getting popular, which for ChatGPT is what, like 2 months ago, right? A lot's happened. A lot of people are super scared of losing their jobs to technology, but then there's this other population of people, the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the founders of companies like us, who are literally scrambling to find ways to use AI, not because we're afraid of anybody taking us out, but because maybe you're afraid that your competition is going to learn how to use it faster or better than you are, which is what prompted me to call Stefan, who's with us today. And I want to give you a little bit of a backstory first. About 2 months ago, I was sitting down in a meeting with my board of directors, and we were talking about how we're utilizing AI in different forms throughout our company. And we'll get into some of that today. But then fast forward a little bit, and I'm sitting down with a group of really good friends who I consider my advisory board, right? We've been getting together monthly, I guess, for close to 20 years. And this same exact conversation came up where we were talking about AI is without a doubt one of the biggest disruptors, probably one of the biggest opportunities of our generation. Now, Stefan, you and I have known each other for several years now, right? And it seems like every single thing that you touch scales, right? It scales quickly because you submerge yourself. You literally, I don't know if you know this, but from an outsider perspective, it looks like you just submerge yourself and you become great at whatever the heck you do. And that goes for the companies that you build, but I think equally important, if not more important to me, it also is the way you have become a great dad, right? So you have this wonderful balance in your life that I respect and that I enjoy in my life also, where we understand how to really push hard in business and then how to really push hard in our personal lives with our family. But when AI popped up in a really big way, you immediately pivoted your company, right? And you dug your heels into the sand and you got so good at it that you now train marketers on how to use AI like ChatGPT and other things to become far more effective. So when I had those conversations with my board and with those friends of mine, I literally texted you like the next morning. I remember the last meeting that I had at night ended really late. So the next morning I got up, I had a quick workout and I was in the sauna right after my workout and I was texting you, well, not actually texting you, I emailed you from the sauna, literally, because I'm like, I got to get this off my desk and see if he'll jump on an interview with me. So I'm super excited to be here with you. And I kind of want to, I want to take a step back and I want to find out how you feel from a 30,000-foot view as an entrepreneur about AI. Does it make you nervous? Does it make you excited? What is it? Like, how do you feel about it?
For sure, and thanks for having me. And yeah, it's the funny thing. I was looking at my Colby score, which I had taken in 2015, and I couldn't remember what people would always ask me and whatever. So I finally found the results from back when I took it in 2015. So I'm like an 8 on the fact finder score, right? When I get interested in something, I really need to understand it and dive in. And so to your point with AI, that's what I've been doing. And we can kind of talk about why I was able to pivot so fast as we get into it. But from a 30,000-foot view, I'm definitely excited. And part of it is because of actually diving in and really understanding it. Because I think I have a pretty strong survival instinct, whether we're talking about in business or personal life or whatever it is. I've been in some harrowing situations, even where was robbed at gunpoint. Just random shit's happened in my life, right? And so I'm not sure if I'm supposed to cuss or not, but whatever. But I very much am I don't ever want to become irrelevant or extinct. And I also want to work smarter and not harder. So when I saw the kind of implications of AI, I wanted to make sure that I was on the correct side of things. So I dove in very deeply, and that helped to ease my mind, because then there is that uncertainty of is this going to change everything? Is it what's even the point? Are businesses going to be so disrupted that my business will go extinct? There's a lot of fears and concerns, but as you really dive in, I'm frankly very, to your point, I think this is honestly the best time ever to be an entrepreneur or a marketer. We have so much power now at our fingertips, and really what I like to call exponential efficiencies, meaning that we can do things exponentially faster and exponentially more efficient. AI enables both of those things. So I'm happy to talk about it, but from a very, very broad basic level, yeah, I'm just really, really excited about what's going on right now.
Yeah, I think out of everybody that I've spoken to from a business standpoint, and again, my circle of friends, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have some people who have been in the grind for a long time, so they've built some really great things. Everybody's excited except for one person, and that one person is a guy that I know who just he never likes to change, and has been super successful in his niche, like his industry. It's okay to do that, which is very rare. I've found it extremely. He services government contracts, so it's okay, I think, in that industry maybe to be a little bit behind the times. But I was having this conversation with him, and it reverted back to calculators when we were in school, and how when I was a kid, calculators were not allowed. Like we were allowed to practice on calculators, but during a test you couldn't use calculators. It was considered cheating. Then now fast forward a little bit, calculators became a standard. Like you had to understand how to use calculators, because finally the school systems realized that calculators are here to stay. And then it became computers, and well, computers are cheating. But now computer classes are like, you can't get through life without understanding how to use computers, right? So everybody teaches you how to do things on computers. So when it comes to AI, and we look at these these platforms that are utilizing AI, and we say, wow, that's weird. That seems like cheating. It's not cheating. Like, I believe, I'm so excited about it because it gives us this ability to tap into robots, right? To tap into this intelligence that gets a chance to look at everything that's been created so far, and then help us to make better decisions, because it's like my best brainstorm partner. When I'm in there and I'm in ChatGPT, I'm in one of the AI programs that allows it to aggregate all this information and then deliver to me an answer. It's like my best employee sometimes. So I'm excited. All right, so how do we want to move on this? Because I want to jump into like the biggest opportunities from an entrepreneur standpoint. And I've been doing a lot of due diligence on this ever since my sauna experience, where I was freaking out as to who I was going to talk to about this. I'm so glad that you said yes. But let's get into how we use it as entrepreneurs. And then if it's okay with you, I want to get into some more specifics, because I know you're doing some pretty great shit that I have not even begun to comprehend yet. So how are you utilizing it in your company?
Yeah, so in a variety of ways, for sure. Like one thing I want to do is I want to kind of let me set one kind of like meta level thing really quick, right? And that's just sort of like, I think like going back to like, there's a good book called Power and Prediction. It's by like 3 AI kind of experts, PhDs from the University of Toronto. And they're sort of talking about the mass, scale adoption of AI, and how basically what needs to happen for that to occur. And so they use the example of, I think is, don't quote me on these dates, but something like 1879, Thomas Edison famously debuts the light bulb, right? And then 20 years later, only 3% of American businesses are using electricity. 20 years after that, 50% of American businesses are using electricity. So they're kind of like, what happened? What's that gap where in the first 20 years, adoption was so slow, and the next 20 years it became at 50%, and then ubiquitous from that point on. And the argument they make, and I think this is an important kind of foundational thing to understand, is electricity became implemented into system-wide solutions. So essentially there's 3 types of solutions. I promise I'm not going to just be esoteric. This is like, I think, actually very applicable. There's point solutions, which are where you're applying a new technology at a single point. There's application layer solutions, where you're applying it to like, an application within a system. And then there's system-wide, where the entire system is leveraging and harnessing this new technology. The reason that matters, and why it's so exciting, I think, for us actually, is because for a lot of the larger companies out there, like it's hard for them to now incorporate. They can't quickly. They can throw AI into a bunch of their marketing, but they can't become like an AI first company or a company that really leverages this very quickly because they've got all these layers of middle management. They've got all of these established systems and SOPs. They've got ways of doing things. They've got entrenched interests where it threatens certain fiefdoms. All these things are happening, and yet that's where it's going to need to go for them to really be competitive. But frankly, they're going to often just go buy companies that solve that for them, right? It's easier for them to go buy a company that is built kind of to be AI first. But for entrepreneurs who are lean enough, if you can incorporate AI and some of the things that like we'll talk about today into your, not just like as a point solution or not just an application solution, but throughout your whole kind of business, it can put you in a really strong position, long term, either to build a very large company, like more revenue than you probably imagined possible, or to be, I think, in a position for a very large liquidity event, more so than you ever thought possible. So, for example, one thing that I'm looking at is I've got a background in having successfully scaled some different, health supplement companies and things of that nature. So even within that context, I'm planning to potentially launch a new health and beauty brand probably in the middle of 2023. But the interesting thing there is like it's really going to be a technology company disguised as a consumer product company, and we'll take AI, an AI first company that basically applies a lot of the stuff we're doing, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, into our company, which I think can make us way more. It turns the skincare company into a disruptive company. I think we can grow significantly faster, and if we are gearing towards trying to get acquired in the future, it increases our valuation, our multiple drastically. So I just think it's interesting to think about that stuff. So specifically around some of the things that I'm using for AI for now, one is the obvious use case of copywriting. My background originally is also in copywriting, and so both for long format copy, but ads, emails, advertorials, landing pages, all these things. And there's a lot of ways you can have AI, automate a lot of your copywriting and streamline that process. It's enabling us, for the agency I own, I do a lot of stuff, right? For better or worse. But to go and, we changed our model entirely, where I used to charge like $50,000 for an infomercial script as an example, but now we'll do $150,000 for 10 scripts. So it's like, you're paying $15,000 per instead of 50, but we're getting more money up front. And because of the processes of AI, which we can talk about, it makes more sense for us. And we can have lower level, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way, but like more junior level copywriters do a lot of the work for us, and then sort of come in for our paintbrush and top it off at the end, right? So that's one thing we can talk about. Another is on the content marketing side, for sure. There's multiple things. You can use AI to generate videos that are with AI voiceover artists, stock royalty-free video, background music that's AI generated, all these things where you can test. You can both do kind of content informational type of videos and also test angles, ads, ideas, hooks in the marketplace extremely rapidly. Even like if you want to test like long format video advertising, you can essentially, what would cost you really $5,000 if you're being really lean testing before, you can do for $4.44. So pretty big difference. I'll talk about that today too. Also using AI to take long format video, break it down to little chunks for more content distribution. There's a really cool tool we can talk about there. SEO is another one, obviously. And then there's some really interesting stuff around chatbots, both like using generative AI to create products and services, but also even as chatting on a website that can be a more customized chat, or can give people on-demand things like, a use case here would be, say you do something in the health space, you could have a little chatbot that essentially gives people recipes or workout guides or all kinds of things you can have AI do for you. And there's, I think one of the next big things you'll see, and there's one interesting company called Personal.ai that sort of is doing this, is where you can, there's a couple, but you can train an AI on you or your brand's voice, whatever it is. You basically feed it, copious amounts of content. The more content you train the AI on, the better. And then it can actually write and speak in your voice. So the idea being there, any content you're putting out could be drastically more personalized, but also you can actually have a chatbot. So I have like a Stefan chatbot where basically like I'm still training it, but I can go put it into my mastermind community as an example. But you can also do this for anyone who's got a brand, and people can chat and it'll answer as me and it knows stuff about me, right? Like, when did you first discover copywriting? Well, I was at a casino in Las Vegas in 2011. Like, it literally answers as me. So you can actually have like, hey, I'm not around 24/7, but my AI avatar is. So if you're, a copywriter or a marketer or an entrepreneur, and you want to like get answers from me from my knowledge base that's been downloaded to this AI, you can do that. So those are just some of the use cases, but it's pretty wild. And I know that's a lot. We can kind of go any direction, but those are some the broad strokes of it.
And if you're answering it inside of your community, or it's answering it as you, is it also utilizing your voice and image, or just is it just a text thing?
Right now with this one, it's a text thing, it's a chat, but there are ones that can do your voice. So there's I think it's like a play.ht, I want to say, and that one is pretty good. Like Descript does the same thing as well, where you can basically train it on for voice, not video as much, but you can train it on your voice, like tons of podcast recordings, whatever, and then you can write scripts and it just reads them in your voice. So you can do podcasts, right, essentially by just like writing a script, but also you can use AI to write the script, then go plug it into play.ht or Descript or whatever it is, have the audio file, and then you can use like Flicky.ai, which is one of the ones that I was mentioning, where it basically creates royalty-free stock video and AI-generated images, and does like subtitles and does background music. So if you think about that, like you can just produce content exponentially faster as a result. There are some ones that do sort of that deep fake video capabilities as well. The ones I played with, to be completely honest, I haven't been insanely impressed with yet. I think they're going to get there pretty fast, and maybe there's some really good sort of enterprise level ones that I haven't seen. The ones that I've seen are a little bit creepy, where it's sort of like the face and then
I agree,
the mouth moves. But I think we'll fix that. I think that's within a year probably that gets dramatically better.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way about those. The ones that I played with don't feel realistic enough to put behind a brand. So let's reverse engineer a couple of things that you spoke about. And by the way, some of the links that you talked about we'll throw in the description. That way people have access to those. But when I say reverse engineer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say something about two of the bullet points that you talked about that I feel like there should be a warning on. So this is going to be a question to you more than a statement. But I don't believe I don't like the actor voices. I think you mentioned something really quickly about the character voices that you could go out there and utilize. Like you could use a famous actor's voice on a script in an ad. I don't like that. Like, I think that's a bad representation of most brands out there, because it feels to me like a lie. And I think there's so many wonderful ways to use AI. That one scares me. The second one that scares me is the use of AI. And this is really a strong question for you, more than it is a statement. From what I've researched, AI for SEO could come back and hit you hard in a bad way, because Google doesn't like that. And Google's AI has been around and has been creeping on us for many, many years. So it's pretty far out there when it comes to being advanced. And from what I understand, they are not going to, they're going to negatively grade websites that use AI generated content for SEO. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, for sure. So let's go two at a time. So, or one at a time. So the first one just to be very clear, what I'm saying is not celebrity voices, but it is like AI generated voices. And so I sort of agree on, you don't necessarily want your whole brand to be a bunch of AI voices. I think that would be, could feel inauthentic or weird or whatever. Yeah. But from a testing perspective, I think it's really valuable. So you're actually seeing that already, where even like I've seen a Golden Hippo, I think VShred's doing it too. Some very large sort of direct response direct to consumer companies that are doing, multiple 9 figures per year. They're testing like hooks and angles in their Facebook ads where the first 30 or 60 seconds is kind of done with an AI voiceover just because of how fast it is to test and get data. So I think that part is where it's really interesting. And those voices are going to get better and better. So one of the tools I mentioned, that Flicky, let me, maybe I'll share my screen and show that really quickly if that makes sense. So, yeah, so basically like what we're doing a really interesting thing right now. We're essentially like, we have 15 different social properties where it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, website, free report on the website, email list, and we're doing it basically all of AI. And the idea is to generate AI generated content that's sort of informational and interesting, to build up followings on these different social media platforms and then see if we can monetize them. So sort of an experiment we're doing to just find out. But what's cool with and I've got a team, and it's pretty crazy though, because with this Flicky thing, we're doing at least 60 videos per day. And basically, I guess got like 200 plus posts per day, or 180 posts per day with our team. We're using mostly VAs and stuff like that. But what's cool with Flicky is these are some of the little ones I tested here. That's a brain, not a butt. I know it's tiny. I'll make the screen bigger. But like, for example, let's pull up this one, and I'm sure I probably have it. Like, I was talking to Kendago, so I said, Kendago, but watch. Let's see, if I just say are you scared of AI? If so, you're not alone, right? So then if I basically, if I hit play, let me make sure the audio is coming from my computer on this here. Give me a second. Show computer sound. Okay, right. So now I've got this, and I hit play. Let's watch.
Are you scared of AI? If so, you're not alone. They're called silent synapses.
I had this thing about the brain before, but basically, right. So now if I want to be whatever, are you in love with AI? If so, you're not alone, right? So then just literally start over again.
Are you in love with AI? If so, you're not alone. They're called.
So you can basically take AI, write it, right? Do this into different things. You can go here and pick stock videos. So you could do this is all royalty free, computers. So I can just add this image in, right? It's pretty fast whenever you're doing it as a demonstration. So I've got a different video there. You can pick from a bunch of different background music. And then the voices too, right? So I had Matthew, but if I go here and I want to do let's say Nancy, and not all voices are created equal, but now I want to test would a female voice perhaps do better to my audience? Then I can just go.
Are you in love with AI? If so, you're not alone.
It's pretty good. It's for an AI voice, it's not bad. So this kind of stuff's pretty crazy because again, if you're trying to test an angle or a hook or content, and it's only going to get better, right? So that's where we're taking this, and like I said, we're creating all of these videos for all these different accounts, and we're trying to see, and we're using AI to write the scripts, and then we have a human kind of look over them to make sure they're not saying anything horrible, whatever it is. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with Flicky. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Have you seen that before? It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I've seen that before. It's amazing. We've played around with it a bunch, and what my biggest challenge is not going down the rabbit hole and waking up, 3 days later, trying to figure out where the time went.
Yeah,
because it's exciting, right? As you start digging into this, you start saying, "Oh my gosh, I could use this. I could use this for ads, like you're showing us, right? I could use this for internal videos for our team. We could use this for training videos inside of our company. We could use it for an onboarding sequence when somebody gets hired inside of our companies. There's so many ways that this is applicable, and it's amazing, right? And so I'm glad you clarified. I was saying, I would not be cool in my company to do it with celebrity voices.
Right, totally.
And that's not what you were saying, but yeah, I'm glad you clarified. So SEO, let's jump to SEO real quick, because there's a lot of companies. And by the way, how attractive is it to think that you could sit there and generate? Do you remember? Were you online when it was not against Google rules, let's just call it, or compliance rules, to stuff your web page with keywords, and you could literally write weight loss supplements in 500 times in an article, and even though it didn't make any sense, you still ranked #1 because Google said, well, this is our algorithm. The more times you say it, the higher we're going to rank you. So it's super attractive to be able to think, wow, I could literally sit there and spit out 500 articles with the word weight loss in it, put them on a website, and tomorrow I could rank higher. But so anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's where I so I started in like, I guess really, 2011, I became a copywriter, let's call it 2012, but 2011, I was doing like some SEO content writing. And then when I became a copywriter, that was sort of like what I wanted to do, but I was just trying to like pay the bills. So I was on Elance, which is now Upwork, and I would get people doing SEO content, and I learned keyword stuff. So I did, like, I had kind of an SEO agency in like the early 2010s or whatever, and was good at it. I got a lot of stuff ranked on the first page of Google for competitive keywords, like for like attorneys in cities, personal injury attorneys. I'd get them, which was very competitive, right? Because they're all trying. And
I got to interrupt you for a second just to laugh about something. How cool would it have been to find Stefan Georgi on Elance or one of these other things, or I don't know what you freaking charged back then, $150, where I know people who have paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars now for like a moment of your time. So it's that would have been, when we think about reasons why it would be fun to turn back the hands of time just for a moment, it would have been one.
Yeah, that would have been one. And well, for me, of course, it's like knowing what I know now, but you have to.
I got it. Still.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's fun to look back, and I've got some of that documented where I've got old proposals to people where I'm sort of this really lengthy, like, I've always been a good writer. So like well-written proposal. And it's like, you think I'm about to quote like $100,000, and I'm like, it'll be $200. And I'm like, oh God, I hope they hire me. It's like, it's kind of fun to look back at. But see, I guess the point there is like, I do know SEO pretty well. And well, it's not my wheelhouse as much. So I think like, yeah, Google obviously doesn't like it, which makes sense. It's like a threat to their business, right? Search is, I forget what it is now, but like 50%-ish, let's call it, of their business. I mean, don't quote me, but it's somewhere in that range. And it's like, I'm pretty sure like their quarterly revenue is something like 39 billion or 17 billion out of 39 billion per quarter, something like that. So it's worth like almost $50 billion a year to them. I think significantly more than that actually. And so yeah, they don't like it. So yeah, they've also kind of said we're gonna have a hard time really catching all of it. And I think more importantly though, like the even bigger challenge becomes if you just sort of use some AI thing, it writes the article, you post it, like you might be more likely to get caught. But if you take a few extra like minutes to sort of like just switch it up a bit, then I think it becomes increasingly difficult for them to catch you. So there's one company, Content at Scale, which is like their whole promise is that basically it's SEO content that's Google proof, like Google won't know that it's written by an AI. So there's some companies that are sort of making that promise. Now, whether or not that's actually fully true or not, I don't know. There's also the ability to sort of like to mix things up a little bit. There's a thing called Quillbot, which I really like. I don't know if you've seen that. Essentially, it's like a thesaurus type of tool where you can put the article in and then it sort of spins it, which back in the day there were article spinners, right? Where take the same article and create like
100 versions of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so this does it, but then what's cool is it also has like hyperlinked text throughout the new version where you can click and change it. Again, it has suggested additions. So even as a copywriter, it's cool because you could basically put a lead in for something and then get like 10 variants of the lead and then like go in and pick like, or an ad, same thing, right? So it's pretty interesting. My guess is where Google is more likely to get you is detecting anomalies to that point, right? So like for Content at Scale, I was in SEMrush and it's like, okay, there's 70,000 kind of copyword or keywords related to copywriting. And it's like, okay, well, one of my businesses works with copywriters. So out of those, there's like, 20,000 of them that have like some search volume per month, but like no competition. And you're like, wow, well, if I could just use AI, I can basically go target all of these keywords that are getting anywhere from like 30 to a couple hundred searches a month, have no competition. I can just like slam this out here and rank for so many things. And the long tail of that could be, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of additional visitors to my website. And that's very tempting. And I still kind of want to do it. But my guess is Google is like, yo, you weren't posting anything. Suddenly you're posting like, 100 articles a day or 500 articles a day. I think that's going to trigger their warning more suppressive to at least warm it up if you're going to do it. But I guess I don't think Google, they're not going to be able to, like, I don't think they're going to be able to like really stop you. I still think as an SEO, like content person or someone who does a lot of SEO, I think it's still a really high benefit. You probably just have to take the extra steps of, making it a little more original or personalizing it. But I think it's still a really good tool. That's kind of where I fall on this scale for that.
Yep. Well, let's dig into some of the other ways that entrepreneurs can use this to really gain an upper hand, right? So, and when I say gain an upper hand, I'll just be very clear. What I'm talking about is understanding these levers that we could pull prior to our competitors becoming good at them in a way that improves our ability to deliver a better product or service to our audience, to understand our audience better, to speak in the verbiage of our audience a little bit better, to connect with them a little bit better, to bond with them a little bit better, not just to make a sale, but to help them, and then to keep them stuck inside of our product for a longer period of time, right? Because once somebody is consuming something of ours, let's just call it a subscription, the value becomes keeping them in that subscription as long as possible, right? So if you're in the ticket industry, which a good buddy of mine is, the goal is not just to sell somebody Super Bowl tickets. The goal is to sell them Super Bowl tickets every single year, and then also, tickets to NBA games and to concerts and to everything else, to be the ticket source, right, on a regular basis. So that's what it is. And I think there's a lot of great ways to leverage AI for that. In fact, inside of our company, we use it to do a lot of research inside of our companies, including to define our target avatar better, right? Like in the past, and I've always been I think you and I have even had conversations about building a better target avatar. I'm a firm believer that not only do you need to know every single thing possible about who your target avatar is, like the best possible customer for you, so that your graphics team could build something, the graphics that are relatable to them, so that your copy team can write words that are, that connect with them, so that your customer support can talk to them better, so that everybody on your team knows who they should be talking to. But I think it's got to be really, really clear. And in the past, we've had a couple of dozen data points that we pulled on every single one of our customers to try to figure out who our best is, and then to build this avatar, this fake person who is our best. Now we can do it with hundreds of data points, because we can literally let AI loose inside of our buyers group, and they can look at all the trends, they can look at all the reasons why people bought, they can look at all the ads that brought them in to buy. They could also look at our prospects and find all the data points out about them also. So it's been a huge asset for us.
Yeah.
So let's dig into some of that stuff on how entrepreneurs can use this stuff.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Actually, I just had a aha moment while you were talking. And so I'm going to share this realization live for the first time, breaking news. But I think it's actually really, really interesting. So I'll go through sort of some of my psychographic research questions and how I use AI to generate that. One really interesting thing that I just thought of while you were talking, though, is so I mentioned this Personal.ai, right? And so let me move my stuff over here. So what's cool about it is essentially you take it and you train it. So it's got my memory stack, and I've shared links to stuff like my RMBC method, YouTube videos, right? And so you can basically train it on all of this content from you. And then you have your little Stefan chat, or your whatever chat, could be for a brand too. And you can have multiple, I think you need an agency account, but you can have multiple sort of like personalities, avatars, whatever you want to call it, right? So it's not perfect. I still need to train it more, but it's cool. And they have third-party app integration, and they're working on that to where, again, you can go put this on your website and someone could be like, chat with Stefan and ask it questions. You can even make it a little subscription thing or just something that helps customers. You can do it from a brand voice. Like some brands are really good at, like KFC on Twitter is really good randomly, right? There's sort of like brands like that. So, like if I'm just sort of like what makes, I'll make this screen bigger. It actually even shows you suggested like things based on what it's been trained on. Like, what's the name of the part of a good sales letter that hooks the reader and makes promises? Sure, let's try that. And if I just submit it, so it makes it a little bigger. The lead or the introduction is part of a good sales letter that hooks the reader. So, right, I can actually like talk to me and based on my knowledge base can answer questions. But what's really cool, what I actually want to use this for now, as we were talking, is like, I think this is really interesting. You could train it, create another one of these, right? For any avatar, any profile that you're like is like sort of a sketch of your target market or one of the segments of your market, right? Train it on kinds of like all kinds of stuff from them, like whether it's forums or there's YouTube interviews or whatever, or again, use AI, right? So it's more synthetic data, which we'll talk about in a second. And you could train the crap out of this. And then you could ask it questions about like sort of all kinds of things related to like its opinions, feelings, beliefs about, your product, what you're selling, the pain points, all of that. And you could actually just get like really dynamic results. That's really interesting. So I didn't even put that together when I was playing with this, but I'm like, damn, that's, I got goosebumps. At least it's another rabbit hole, but that's pretty interesting, right? You get some really cool stuff there, I bet. As far as like some specific, really tactical stuff. So I've got like, I have like a sort of a process. I have these research questions and actually, so it's funny because we talked about the, like where we could direct people who watch this. And it was spg.fun/research. And that basically gives you the first module of my copywriting method called RMBC. But the first module is universal. It doesn't matter if you care about copyright or not. It's really about research and psychographic research. And I have all these questions. And so really a lot of those questions that we would ask and answer historically would be like, go to forums, go to Amazon, look at 5-star and 1-star reviews. You can look at Reddit comments and YouTube videos and all that stuff can be valuable, but we can shortcut a lot of it with AI. So what I like to use personally is, Playground from Open.AI. So it's the same people who do ChatGPT. I like Playground because it's just a little bit more control. You can do a few cool things. Like, for example, there's like the temperature setting, right? So for people who don't know what temperature is, it basically controls the level of creativity or randomness. It's between 0 and 1. So the default is 0.7, but sometimes I crank it up to 0.9 if I want to be more creative. And you can kind of choose the maximum length for an output. I usually stop it at about 2000, but you can go significantly higher. But this becomes important, as you'll see in a moment, because you can tell it very specific stuff like, write an emotional, let me make this bigger too, so people can see. Like write like an emotional 1,000-word journal entry from the perspective of a man who is struggling to get clients for his online coaching business. He feels frustrated and hopeless to be creative, right? So if I take that in to Playground and put it in there, it'll do it and it'll give me 1,000 words. So give it a second. Hopefully it cooperates. I mean, actually this one, Playground basically always works. So maybe I didn't hit submit. There we go.
Well, that's doing that.
Yeah.
Those people who don't know, maximum length, 2000 is characters or words.
Yeah, I think it's words actually.
Okay.
Let's see. One token is roughly 4 characters. So I guess it's sort of in between both, I guess. So it's like one, so technically it's token length, and then so 1 token equals 4 characters. So I guess it's probably more like 1,200-ish words. I'm pretty sure it also then ties into like basically being self-referencing to an extent. So for example, one of the challenges with, generative AI is essentially it's predictive AI, right? It's sort of like predicting based on this prompt or this input or any other data you're giving it. It's predicting what you want the output to be. But the challenge, which is again solved very quickly, historically it's that it didn't have a lot of short-term kind of like working memory, so to speak. So it could look at like a bit of like context and then give you an output. But if you try to give it Ulysses by, James Joyce, it's not going to be able to like remember all of that and then still give you the new output. But with a higher length, like it will reference more of the stuff. So, just to look at this this output, this is for a coaching example, but we can look at it for anything, right? We can look at it for people who sell widgets and things, right? But I can barely bring myself to write these words. It's a struggle to get clients for my online coaching business. I'm so frustrated and hopeless that I feel like giving up. I'm sure that I'm not alone in this experience. Everyone has their own struggles. I'm sure there are many entrepreneurs out there trying to make an online space, but it's hard not to feel like I'm alone in this fight. I've been working on my business for months now, and it seems like I'm still stuck in the same place. I've been trying to get clients, but it just doesn't seem to be working out. I've been reaching out to potential clients, but they don't seem to be interested in what I have to offer. I'm trying to stay positive and believe that clients will eventually come, but the longer this goes on, the harder it gets. I'm starting to get discouraged and feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm trying to stay focused on the goals I have for my business, but it's hard when I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And I have to keep going. I feel like I'm spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. Let's see here. I feel like I'm not making progress. It's hard when I feel like I'm at the same point I was months ago. Another interesting thing to note on this, by the way, is if I do this like 5 times, I'll get 5 different versions. Okay. So sometimes the first version may be like, all right, it's pretty good, but like this one's kind of, because this one I'm looking at is kind of interesting because it keeps saying like, I'm trying to do this good thing, but I feel this bad way. But that's not always the pattern you get. So it's again, if I do this 3 times, or if we go back to 0.9, for example, I'll get a totally, or at least a pretty different output. So it's worth showing that really quickly. We don't have to, do it every time, but but now it's totally different, right? I'm feeling utterly deflated. It's been a few months. I don't have a single client. There's a huge dream of mine. I was determined to make it work, but here I am feeling miserably with every passing day. And so it just kind of keeps going. Every passing day, I feel the disappointment and despair weigh me down. I feel like a failure. Like nothing I do can make a difference. It's pretty good, like psychographic stuff here, right? And so we won't have to go through and read the entire thing. But another interesting thing from a marketing perspective, by the way, that's worth just like looking at is you can just sort of say like, okay, like rewrite the above, but replace I with you. Because if you're talking to you, the prospect, just throwing that in there. And now it's like, you're sitting, and obviously there's gonna be little things you have to change, but like you get a lot of language that you could use. And I've tested this for all kinds of stuff from like, like supplement type of copy to coaching to like financial planning, right? Like this stuff works everywhere. So we don't have to go through, make this a whole masterclass in prompts, but I guess the big idea here is I'll share a few others that are also valuable because it gets you such a good sketch to your point of who your target market is. So a follow-up prompt, the one I just shared, is like focusing on how their outside observations or on their observations of how the outside world looks at them and treats them because of their pain point. And how that makes them feel, and by the way, we look at the negative and the positive. So I start off these negative kind of feelings. Then we look at the positive state of like, what could your prospect feel like if they solve that pain point? But this one here is interesting because now it's not just about like their journal, right? But it's sort of like people are what's the motivator? It's sort of status, how the outside world sees you, things like that. So now by talking about like that same question of the outside world, you'll get totally different things. It'll talk about how, maybe like societal pressures they feel, or how they feel like they're, judged by a friend group, or how they, these secret aspirations. I mean, you could ask it also like here's a really good one. Right? Like, what are 20 things that a man or woman who has whatever their primary pain point may lay awake at night having anxiety about? So, let's say you were in the diet space as an example, and you're like, what are 20 things that a woman who's struggling to lose 30 pounds of excess weight may lay awake at night having anxiety about? And you'll get like this list. And again, it's pretty like emotional. It doesn't mean you're gonna need to use every one of these things verbatim, but you're going to get a lot of them. And then I'll show you one more cool thing on top of that in a second here as well. And then I can pause so we're not just me wandering on prompts. But as a copywriter, by the way, and a marketer, this stuff is like just like gold for me. So there's a variant to this, which is sort of like, and I don't have the exact phrasing on this document in front, but it's sort of like, now give me 10 more things that she would never admit to anyone else, except herself, in a moment of, brutal honesty and self-reflection. Now, this isn't the exact prompt I used, but basically like it'll start to get you even it'll go even deeper, and then you can basically be like, okay, like for number one, I'm feeling like a failure for not being able to lose weight. For number one, write 400 words from the woman's perspective, right, about her feelings and frustrations, right? And then sort of what I probably do is I delete some of this reference stuff up above, so we just have that. But now it's sort of again, we've got this very specific stuff about, and you can do it for each of their pain points, and you can essentially be not just what are pain points is your market experience, but then what is what in your market's words, what might they say, right? And you sort of have that. And again, you can do this for everything. And you can uncover, the other cool thing I think about with generative AI and stuff like this is it will uncover really interesting things you might not think of. I did I think Chris Clark and Native Path and stuff. So I did a turmeric thing for them, and it was targeted towards joint health, but there was little things that I may not have thought of before. First of all, I came up with this phrasing of it feels like I have an invisible illness, which I'm damn, that's good, right? Because it's sort of the idea that this joint pain is haunting you, it's with you, but others can't see it, nobody understands. There's a lot of it was really powerful. And then people write about joint pain and they go oh, get on your hands and knees to play with your grandkids, unscrew a jar, there's these sort of common things. But it was talking about how sitting on the sofa, you can't get comfortable, you're in pain even just trying to watch TV at night and relax. And then in bed, you're tossing and turning because you can't get into a comfortable position. And then it talked about needing to grip the banister as you walk up and down the stairs. And these little details that you might not have thought of. You might have thought about walking up the stairs, but that makes it so much more real. And it's just really a powerful adjunct. So last thing I'll just share really quick. I mean, there's a bunch of these prompts here. I did a really cool kind of in-depth training on it. Is what you can do is you basically can then turn on and look at positive stuff, right? So for example, write an emotional 1,000-word journal entry, from the perspective of someone who basically fixed their pain point, or who struggled with their pain point but now fixed it. And now how does the outside world view them? So you get both sides, because we're not trying to just beat people up on our marketing. It's just important to understand both sides, because really a lot of marketing is promising. It's transferring an emotional state and promising that you're going to do it. So it's hey, you feel you're in this state now, I'm going to help you get to this state, which is a much more positive state, right? Or even if you're feeling really good, right? It doesn't mean that you have to work with somebody who's in a really crappy emotional state. It's hey, you're already a high achiever, but I'm going to help you get to a whole nother level of success and achievement, right? So having sort of being able to paint a picture of what life could look like if that were to happen is pretty powerful. So I'll pause because I don't want to fire hose people, but those are just some examples of the psychographic research that are really, pretty cool.
Yeah, you touch on so many different things. The one thing that I think is my biggest question is the prompt thing, but I want to be really specific about that, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
I want to show you some stuff that we have been playing around with, and then kind of get your feedback and kind of brainstorm through making it better, if that's okay with you. Sure. Let me go ahead and take ownership of this screen and share screen right now. Okay, you see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to open up ChatGPT, which I think is open, but to be quite honest, it times out so often. So here's a couple of things that we've done, which I'm geeking out over this shit, like I was telling you before. I asked it to create an employee test to determine emotional IQ, because I believe understanding the emotional IQ of the people on our team is so freaking amazing. Okay, so there's an error.
This is where Playground is really good, by the way. Playground basically is never down. Just so you know, I would recommend testing Playground too.
So how would I ask it again? I'm going to do this real quick and just see if I could get it going. Otherwise, I prepared for this. Let me just say, here we go. Emotional IQ test. An emotional intelligence test for employees could include the following components: self-awareness questions, blah, 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 empathy questions, such as this, social skill questions. So it's telling you the kinds of questions that it could create: self-regulation questions, motivation questions. Okay, now we get into examples of questions. So literally it's creating the test
This is
right now. Each one of these 5 components: self-awareness questions, empathy questions, social skill questions. Can you describe a time when you had to influence others? How did you handle criticism? Can you give an example of how you've resolved conflict with a coworker? Self-regulation questions, and now motivation questions. Now, it just gets geekier next. Here we go. Let's see if this, hopefully this does the same thing as it did yesterday. It didn't. Okay. So when I asked it this yesterday, it gave me the answers as well. So it showed me how to create the answers to these. So it literally said, well, here's how you score this. And then here we have, here's another question that I asked it. How do you hire a great outbound? No, let's not do that one. Let's do this one. This will be even more fun. Paste. Create a standard operating procedure for onboarding a new employee for a small company. Now, standard operating procedures, I know from as being an owner, partner, advisor, and investor to so many different companies, especially when we walk into a company in our venture capital firm, and when we're walking in and we find these companies are so great at so many different things, but they don't have standard operating procedures, or they have standard operating procedures that are super old.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying by any means that this is what it's spitting out right now. For those people who are actually watching the video version, it's literally creating a standard operating procedure for onboarding a brand new employee into a small company, showing how to pre-board them, what to do on the first day, what to do on the first week. For those of you who are listening to the audio version of this, you can't see this, unfortunately, but it's doing a pretty good job for a basic SOP. So this, I'm not saying, is spitting out the final version like you were saying about the copy. This is spitting out a great template to then use either with your HR person or with you and your partners in the company or whatever to clean it up. So it's saving hours. I mean, if you're doing multiple SOPs, this could be saving dozens of hours. Now, here's a cool one also. And the reason why I'm asking you this, I'll get to in just a moment, because I want to improve upon some of these to make the prompts better, to get it to spit out much, much better content. So here's another one. Create an employee handbook for a business consulting firm that has 10 employees and $30 million in revenue. So here we go. An employee handbook for blank, blank, blank consulting firm. Welcome to blank, blank, blank consulting firm. We are pleased to have you as part of our team. This employee handbook has been created to provide you with important information about the company, its policies, its benefits, and responsibilities of being an employee. Please read the handbook carefully and let us know if you have any questions. Now it goes through the company overview, the company culture. It actually creates a basic company culture. So again, we'd want to personalize all this kind of stuff, but it's spitting out some highly impressive templates to create all these great things. Now, here's the one that I want to talk about, and I wanted to show you those initially because I wanted to kind of ground you and say, these are some of the games that we've been playing with it, with Chat GPT, but also with a bunch of other AI programs to try to improve upon the systems inside of our companies, because there's just so many different ways to use it, but the systems is one of those ways. One of the things that we have been doing for many years, and something that I've talked to a lot of companies about in the past, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about it, is that when you have a team of people, whether they are employees, independent contractors, or vendors, I think it's super important to have daily a daily connection with everybody on our team. I think it's super important, at least in my culture, to send a daily, I hate to call it this, but it's a daily inspirational email so that every single person on the team knows that they're on my mind every single day, and that here's a good positive thought to lead you to start your day, right? And we do that in each one of our companies. So I started doing this, and I started with asking it, hey, can you give me 52? This is what I did first, just so everybody can see on my screen. I'm not going to actually run these because they were, I'm showing you the things that were not very helpful for us. I asked for, hey, can you give me 52 inspiring daily quotes for motivating employees? Now, I didn't like what it spit out from there, because what it spit out was other people's quotes, like Thomas Jefferson and, you know, a bunch of quotes like that. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for things that are far more personal than a freaking quote that they could go and search on Google. And then I asked it, hey, can you give me 52 inspiring tips for motivating employees? And that was my mistake, because that ended up being, you know, for owners or operators of a company, you know, for them to be motivated. And so that didn't work. And then I said, can you give me tips to have a great day at work? That was okay, but it was really super general. But I got better. Like each one of these, the reason why I'm showing them to you is because I think I'm getting a little bit better with the prompts for this. I asked, hey, can you give me 10 tips to stay positive at work? And again, it was good, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And then I said, hey, can you give me 10 things to say to employees to make them feel appreciated. And that was, that ended up being just statements to say to employees, right? What I'm looking for is inspirational statements to send to employees, right? So my best so far is this, and I'll actually run this one. It is 10 daily inspirational statements to send employees. So when I do that, I get something that's a little bit closer, but I'm still nowhere near, it's still nowhere near good enough for me to send to employees. Now, I've been doing this inside of my companies for years, and we have literally thousands of these that I wrote over the years because we just throw them into a bucket. When I think about them, when I'm talking to them as a team, when somebody says something to me in my company that I think is truly inspirational, I put it in there. But again, you see, this one is starting to spit out quotes from Steve Jobs and Albert Einstein, also Franklin. And so this is not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for quotes. But I would like to nail down something, because I think this is so important for entrepreneurs to have for their employees. But more important, I think it's important for entrepreneurs to see how we improve upon the prompt so that they could get their questions answered really well. And I know you're a master at this. So let's play with it.
Yes. I'm kind of playing with it. I'm trying to see, like, basically I've got an idea here, and I could always I'm running into the same problem that you are, where I'm messing with it, and I'm seeing a lot of like it telling the leader what to do. What I'm trying to see is like because where my mind goes is, let me see here. Like, it's probably a two-part thing. So part one, I feel like is giving it more qualification of like I have, this is not going to get you the best output, but I have something like, what are give me a second, because I have it is actually putting stuff out there, but it's like, what are 10 unique and inspiring talking points that the leader of a small business with 15 employees could send to their employees in a memo that would make them feel inspired, motivated, and noticed? You can also use appreciated. The employees are most driven by a sense of purpose, accomplishment, and meaning, right? So I'm trying to, that's when I started playing with. If you want, I can share my screen again. I want to take off.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So
stop sharing.
So kind of like celebrate each of your individual successes and thank you for your hard work and dedication. Recognize the importance of teamwork and how each of your contributions is part of a collective effort. Remind your employees of the purpose of the business and how their work contributes to the success of the organization. Show appreciation for unique skills and perspective. So that didn't get me quite what I wanted. What I'm curious about is maybe something like that, for for each of these, write a, let's say like 50-word memo the leader can send directly to their employees. Let's see what happens with that. And I think this might turn it into too much of like, but I think there's a way to fix this. So that was like one of them, but I think what I would do instead of each of those, that wasn't bad, but maybe like for number one, write a 100-word memo that so if this is for number one,
this is
it's better though. It's not, I don't think it's perfect, but you're kind of getting better. Okay, like do the same thing for number two. Let's see what we get here. It's gonna be the same thing. So you're getting closer, because now it's like for each of those things, right? Like, so I don't know if we'll crack the perfect code on this live, but I think like if you kind of talk about like giving it more context of like who the leader is, what the company is, and then what the employees want and stuff like that.
right.
And sometimes even just using the right phrasing. Like I said things before, and things that kept giving me like things for the leader, but
Right.
talking points was like a little bit more. So a lot of the magic of these prompts comes into really refining and finding the right words, which is something like great for me as a word person. You know, like my SATs back in the day, like I'm not super math inclined. Like I'm okay, and with business math I've gotten better and all that, but like verbal I was like almost perfect, and the math was like significantly lower. So it's like, you know, like this is a dream for me, because I'm like, oh, I get to choose different words, and but yeah, and I think again, so if you do like part one and then you sort of have the follow-up of like the memo, I think this is the path I would take. And then obviously we could, you know, you can play with tuning it more.
So the difference between ChatGPT and Playground is it that we're able to put stuff onto the screen and then have the AI utilize what we put onto the screen as well as everything else that it's searching. Is that?
Yeah, like in theory, I think in theory ChatGPT is doing the same thing, but like it just, from my experience, Playground just seems to be a little bit more just kind of better at it, and it can have like a longer string of things, I feel like. And like whereas with ChatGPT it's a little bit more dicey, where it sort of like sometimes does it, sometimes doesn't. Another really cool thing that my partner and several of my businesses, Mario, found is essentially, I don't want to butcher this, but basically you can tell it like, hey, I'm going to give you three like three inspiring quotes that I've shared with my team members. These come from me and original. Don't do anything with them, just like sort of like make note of them and their structure or whatever. And it's like, okay. And you give it the three, you're like, quote number one. It's like, got it. Number two, got it. Number three, got it. And you can be like, all right, now write a fourth one, you know, based off in this style. And it will actually do that, if that makes sense. So it's actually
It's Playground.
It's super interesting. Yeah, I think I actually did in ChatGPT too. So maybe we'll do in ChatGPT. So like, watch, let me we try it, but yeah.
Yeah, let's, while you're pulling that up. So that's interesting, because if we, mentally we go back to where we were before, and we were talking about creating these daily inspirational quotes or statements or whatever it is, maybe part of the value would be putting our list of company values in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that it could see whatever your 8 to 10 or 12 values are, or your mission statement or something like that. And then it can incorporate that into creating those. That's interesting. Yeah.
That's a really interesting thing. I think, let's see if it finds, like these are like a working thing of values for one of our companies, right? So we're kind of sharing, different people are sharing their values, but you know, we do everything at an A level or it's an F. We seek efficiencies, not shortcuts. We celebrate new mistakes, but abhor making the same mistake twice. We're students of experience and use it to guide our decisions for the future. We embrace radical honesty, truth, and transparency. We view every customer as king or queen. We're always curious, creative, and innovative, and we're confident without overestimating our capabilities, right? These are ones that I came up with that I really like. Well, let's say for and for me, GPT is that capacity, and I have the premium version, but I've been lazy to sign up because I use Playground mostly anyway. But it's like, I wonder if we could like, all right, I'm going to give you a list of values in my company, like do not do anything with them, just make a note. I should find the actual prompt that Mary used for now. Okay, let's see what it says, if it does this. Okay, so then if I go down and I'm like, so it's like, okay, here are the values. No, okay. Using the above values, write, what should we say? Like write a 100-word inspiring memo to employees of my company. Let's just see what, that's pretty basic, but like, let's see.
Yeah.
So that's pretty, you know, it's not bad though for reminding them of the values. I mean, I memorized it, but I wonder about like sort of, I wonder if we could do something I'd be curious about. I know people, I guess, who are listening, not watching, it basically said, you know, dear employees, we are proud to remind you of the values that have guided us to success. We believe that everything should be done at an A level and seek efficiencies instead of shortcuts. It basically just like summarized a lot of the values in that one. I wonder about like, what I'm curious about is if we said like, you know, given the above values, what should we do about, I mean, this gets dicey. I'm not saying you should have AI make managing or HR positions. An employee who consistently turns in, you know, C-level work and is always looking for shortcuts.
Interesting.
Curious what I was going to say about that.
Should also explain that employee behavior not in line with the values we should also provide employee guide. So that's interesting, but then I'd wonder, are we able to take this now? Again, I'm going to preface this for everybody who's going to be watching or listening to this. There's no legal advice in here. We're
Yes.
not, we're neither Stefan or I, neither one of us are attorneys. We're not giving you legal advice, blah, 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 blah. However, I wonder if we're able to take this to the next level and say, spoken as our attorney or spoken as our human resource manager, how would we say that to the employee? Something to that effect, because what this is saying is very, very general. And what I would want it to say is something like, hey, here's what we need to do. We need to have them sign a document that says that they understand that they're turning in C-level work, and that they're, because of that, they're not living up to our values. And the consequence of that, because they're just saying, explain the consequences of continuing that similar behavior. I would want them to actually say, the consequence of that is blank.
Right.
So so it would take a lot of tweaking, and we'd have to teach it what our level of consequences are. But the goal would be for this to be predictive as opposed to just vomiting up the same thing,
right.
And, you know, just stated differently.
Yeah. So maybe let's say, should a HR director say, and you can also do it as like a warning letter or something like that, you know, but say to an employee who consistently turns in, like, if there's that, or like looking for a shortcut. Let's try that, and we can also say like, you know, yeah, I don't know. But here's the thing. I feel like if I played with this for like 20 minutes, I could get some really good stuff. Like, because you could say like, write a given the above, write a warning letter from the perspective of an HR manager to an employee who is not living up to, you know, let's do this. So let's like number them. I wonder if that'll make a difference, but for those who are just listening, I'm numbering the values to value number, let's say 5, and explain what the consequences of continuing to fall short of that value would be. Let's see.
Oh, this is better.
Yeah, it's a lot better. I mean, it's perhaps a little bit like harsh, maybe it could be worded
I
better,
don't.
you're nice.
I
I'm
know
nicer
the
than you.
punishments might be
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
I think this is much more direct, and I think that direct is the best approach most of the time when we have somebody who's not living up to something that they signed up for, right?
Yeah.
So, if your behavior does not improve, you may face disciplinary action, including verbal warning, or written warning, or even termination. So, I like this. I mean, thank you. Like this is exactly what I was hoping for, to be able to see how simply tweaking the prompts gives us something that gives us a leg up as entrepreneurs, right? Because like, here's the challenge that I have often. I'd be curious to see if you have this challenge as well. But the challenge that I have is that, gosh, at freaking whatever time, when everybody's gone, like 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, I'm festering over different things. And it's not always bad things. Like there are some things that are going on in my companies that I still think about. And when I give my brain a chance to relax, that's when a lot of the greatest ideas come out. But also a lot of the things that we're working on developing for the future that I'm real excited about, that's when a lot of the fun things come out as well. So if I'm thinking about something HR related, for example, and I have the ability to sit here and what did this take us? It cost us what, 8-10 minutes to go through and tweak prompts. How long would that have taken? Like it would have cost us a ton of time and money and probably frustration having a conversation with HR about that and going through all these different things, as opposed to doing that now, having a conversation with HR or directly with the employee if you don't have HR. That is now much better thought out from a whatever. I mean, I don't want to say from a legal standpoint because I don't want anybody to think we're giving them legal advice. But I think this is so AI. Let's get into, the top ways to use AI as an entrepreneur, because I think this is a really good segue. Because I believe one of the ways is for AI to be my brainstorm partner as an entrepreneur. And I think that it's very rare that you and I or any entrepreneur has a really great brainstorm partner that we could ask direct questions to. And if you're asking the wrong freaking question, it's your fault. And you're tweaking the question, but it's rare that we have the ability to brainstorm with somebody who's not afraid to be fired or is kind of reading into their answer before they give us the answer to make sure it's in their best interest. But that it's also rare that we get a chance to ask a question and then tweak our question and tweak our question and tweak our question until we actually ask the right question. So we become better question askers, which is super important for us.
Yeah, I really love that. So, I think, my major was philosophy. And so you can look into there's like a lot of philosophy around like linguistics and language and communication and all that kind of stuff. But it's actually to that point, it forces us to not just, I'm trying to explain this without getting too weird meta, but basically when we refine our questions, we refine our thinking, to your point. And so I think a lot of times, a lot of challenges occur because of a lack of clarity in communication. And so we think we're communicating something very clearly, but it turns out we're being very general or broad, or people aren't getting the meaning that we think we're imbuing into our question. And so to your point, in addition to being a brainstorming partner as part of that process, you're using it to help to refine and clarify your thinking and your communication, which makes you a more effective communicator and leader. And that's extremely powerful, right? It is very interesting to think about that, because it's like, and a lot of people I've seen, come in, ask a couple questions, get mediocre results and go, oh, AI is overrated. It's never going to replace blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you just didn't ask the right questions. You didn't take the time to refine. And so hopefully some people watching this might've felt that way too, or listening. And you see how powerful refinement is. But Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Chris, and that's really interesting, especially on the refining both questions and your thinking too. It's very interesting.
Yeah, well, I said it, but you actually did it. So it's a combination.
We did it. Yeah.
So, okay. So as an entrepreneur, I see a minimum of 4 different ways to use AI to really, and this is from our conversation today. Yeah. 4 ways have come from this meeting. Number 1 is in no particular order, but for me would be brainstorm partner, which is miraculous. And it does take some training and it takes a little bit of time, but literally you're able to spend an hour or 2 and then go into work the next day or go into the office the next day, a week or a month in advance, because it really shortcuts your success curve, I think, in your ability to brainstorm through things. The second way, and again, these are all, they sound like statements. I'm asking you also for your feedback on these. The second way is to find patterns in our data, right? We discussed using it to create the best avatar, and you shared a document. We're going to put the link in the description, but for those who are just listening to it, it's spg.fun/research, right? And that gives them the first chapter of your program, but it also, I mean, there's just so much in there that helps them to refine their question process when it comes to creating, getting clear on their target avatar, but a lot of other things. But it's not just the avatar, it's analyzing all the data points inside of your customer journey, from where they hear about you all the way through to your website. What did they click on your link in the first third of your page, the second third, the bottom, the call to action, which button did they click? And all those things we were able to study in the past, but it's very difficult to utilize that data with the advertising data, with how long they stick with us, with the products that they buy, with all these other questions that we could input into AI and then let it loose in there to study all that kind of stuff. The third way would be to build it into our products and services, right? We didn't touch on that, but that was one of the things that I was thinking about that I wrote down. I don't believe there's a business out there, and I could be totally mistaken on this, but out of the 11 companies inside of my personal portfolio, there's not one company that I could think of right now that probably will not have an AI component to either the products or services that we offer, probably within the next 24 months to be conservative, maybe within the next 12 and some, without a doubt, because I think it'll make it easier for us not just to connect with our prospects and to our customers, but to deliver our products and services in a better way and to make it more valuable to them. Right. And the fourth way would be to help create systems, right? Like we did. We created an employee. What did we create? Employee onboarding. We created an SOP. We created, inspirational quotes for our team members. Those kinds of systems that most companies wish they had. That at least this gives us some templates to.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of those ways. I think if I'm thinking about, I guess, one of the others maybe I would add in is like lean and agile kind of testing, right? So again, going back to with like Flicky, or even the accounts that we're creating in all of these sort of social media properties, one of the ideas, and they're in a few affinities where we also happen to sell products and services. So the thought is, if you have like even these accounts with, a lot of followers and good engagement and everything, you can take, potential like hooks ideas, even like product ideas, and sort of like work them into content and, distribute them and then see what the reaction and response is from the market and comments and things like that. So you both get feedback, but you can also test ideas in addition to, of course, testing angles, hooks, things like that. So I think it's a really good thing for very rapid testing and feedback. I think it's a really powerful one too. And then, I think like, obviously like I think you could argue like writing partner, though I think that goes into the realm of brainstorm partner within reason, but obviously we didn't really go too deep into that. But one of the things we're doing, we're using AI to essentially get first drafts of sales letters in like an hour or two, sales letter being like an infomercial type script, right? And it used to take like weeks to do that. And again, just like to the point, same thing with the SOPs. These aren't like perfect polished things that you go ship to your your client or use for your own business, but they're a great place to start. And from there you go in and you refine and everything like that. So obviously there's a lot of copywriting sort of startups, but yeah. And I think the last thing, this is sort of all encompassing, it's just a thought I had is, I bet you listen to the All In podcast as well. I'm not sure if you do or not. It's a great podcast. But they talk about SaaS companies a lot. And obviously I think, one of the things that they were saying on one of the recent episodes is how, most SaaSes are essentially just like workflow automation, like tools, workflow automation softwares. And really from that perspective, it's not that an AI is necessarily a SaaS, but it's really similar. A lot of it is that it just really is going to it automates and expedites and creates workflows, which is just extremely, extremely powerful. And so I think that's, that alone shows, how big is the global SaaS industry? Salesforce alone is whatever it is, like $100 billion plus or whatever. And so it just shows like the real power, I think, of AI, just thinking about how it automates workflows as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's exciting. Like we started this whole podcast with saying AI very possibly could be the biggest disruptor and or biggest opportunity of our generation. It's a lot to say. Like there's a lot that happens in a generation, but this is pretty spectacular, and it's going to have a big impact on everything in a good way, I think. Like I'm not saying that I want robots to take over the world, but I'm saying that our ability to deal with artificial intelligence and or robotics, our ability to communicate with them properly will dictate the responses that we get from them, and those responses can help significantly improve what we are delivering inside of our businesses and how quickly we grow our businesses, and how valuable, to go back to something that you were talking about, how valuable your company is for increasing multiple a time of sale, right? Which is a huge component to the great majority of companies that you and I both have.
Yeah. And one other note I'll make is, I look at this idea of like meta creativity, because some people will go like, well, it's, especially for marketing type stuff, like, wow, it's doing it for you. People are going to not even be creative. They don't have to think. They just push the button. But it's like, I think that's complete BS, right? I think the people who already weren't deep thinkers or creative thinkers, well, sure, but that was true before. For people who are creative and who are, kind of deep thinkers, it just gives opportunities for more creativity, because it's like, how do you layer these things on top of each other? How do you combine them in interesting ways? How do you generate the unique prompts? And not only that, but you're conserving a significant amount of brain power and mental energy that would have gone to tasks that were important, but not necessarily actually creative or high value. So going back to like the warning letter we did, right? It's like, that could be very important to have, but like you having to take the mental bandwidth and energy in that expenditure versus just having it written. And now like you have that, the gas tank stays full longer. So I think you can just be a way more productive and creative human because of this stuff. And you can worry about the singularity, but we're probably still a couple of decades away from that. Who knows? Also, I can sit around worrying about it all day, or I can, if I'm selling a bunch of companies and, a billionaire, I'm probably gonna have a lot more options for how to be safe from the singularity anyway. So I'll take that path personally. I'm good. I'm good with that. But or by the way, even to influence the path of things, right? Not just so like I'm go be safe and like go off to like Mars and everyone else is in trouble, but like, you can have more influence, right? So it just doesn't make sense to ignore and hide from this stuff and put your head in the sand, because like all that's gonna happen, keep your head in the sand and your ass just gets sunburned, right? So I think like it's much better to face this stuff head on and have an impact and influence the direction things go.
Yeah, and AI has been around for a bit. ChatGPT just for a couple of months, and I literally feel like I'm behind the times on ChatGPT, and it's only been around for a couple of months, right? Because I know people who jumped in. I literally was on a business trip, sitting at a board meeting, And one of the guys at the board meeting was playing around the day that it was introduced, saying, "Have you tried this yet?" And I'm like, "I don't have the time. Like,
Right.
I'm spread thin right now, so no." And then a couple of weeks later, I was like, "Damn! Like, I feel like he's ahead of me now." Even though it's been a couple of weeks. So just imagine, flash forward into the future, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. Companies that are not understanding how to maximize this. The only analogy that I could give is many years ago when I owned those health clubs, I remember walking through one of my clubs. This is in the 90s and 1990s for those of you who are not old enough to understand what that is. And I was talking to one of the members who was asking me why we didn't have a website for the company. And I'm like, well, because I'm a physical company. I don't need a website. It's hard to even say that without laughing, right? Every single company needs a website. It's part of business. That's what this is going to be. Every single company needs an AI component, at least one, if not an AI component to every part of their process.
And things are moving so fast and will continue to move so fast that the longer a company waits to embrace this and to incorporate AI into their systems and processes, the harder it's going to be to catch up, I think, with, those who are embracing it now as well. So to your point, I totally get what you're saying, but of course it's still early enough that, anyone jumping in here is good, and the technologies will keep evolving and changing, of course. But there's going to be, if you look at the classic sort of product adoption curve, like the crossing the chasm type thing, right? It's like there's all the, like, we're right now, we're sort of arguably with, it's weird, I don't know, we're in the early adopter / maybe early majority with ChatGPT specifically, although a lot of other AI stuff, we're still all the way over on the innovator side. But like, there's still gonna be a lot of people who are the laggards in the majority, and those people are really gonna have a hard time keeping up, because if your competition is just so much more efficient in their operations, if they're so much more efficient in their output, if they're testing things way faster than you, if they're sort of creating content, creating copy, creating collateral, incorporating AI into like customer experience, like I don't know how you could compete with that, right? You're gonna be in a lot of trouble, and the wider the gap gets, the harder it is to cross the chasm, so to speak, right? So I hopefully people, as many people as possible, can jump on, because again, we keep saying there's just so much opportunity right now. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and it's not just in business. Like I know we keep rehashing the exact same thing and using different words, or at least I am. But if somebody's listening to this and they believe that, wow, well, that doesn't have anything to do with my business, my industry, my company, my team, whatever the heck it is, it has to do with you. Like your ability to sit there and brainstorm with something that could give you instantaneous, extremely crystal clear answers to your questions and help you process and think more clearly. That makes you a better leader. It makes you a better CEO. It makes you better able to handle a negotiation, right? It is so vital. I think it literally collapses timeframes when it comes to you absorbing information and becoming a better thinker. But anyway, I mean, we've said it 50 times in 50 different ways so far. But Stefan, thank you so much, man. You shared a bunch of links. I am going to make sure that at least most of those wind up in the description. Certainly the one to you, and also prior to us recording, you mentioned that you have an AI Facebook area where you discuss AI related topics. It was way too long of a URL to mention right now. It included numbers and and shit like that. So we're just going to go ahead and put it into the description to make it easier for everybody, if that's okay with you. Is any parting words that you have while we wrap up?
I really enjoyed the conversation. So thanks for having me. And it is such a exciting space. I feel like there's so much, maybe we'll do a part 2 one day, because I feel like there's even more stuff we could have.
I'd love to.
For sure. But I'm really happy I got to come on and share with people. And I just would challenge people to really try to incorporate AI and these tools into like more of your systems, processes, workflows, and whether it's for business or, to your point, with your brainstorming and clarifying your own thinking. And because it's I think you're just going to see. I wrote a little post about this that I don't know, get great reach, but basically the power of short-term thinking, which seems funny because we always talk about long-term thinking. So I think you still need a long-term vision, and you need your principles and your values, which can change, but they're pretty slow to change, right? Over like a decade or whatever it is, maybe some change. And you and I have talked about that before, Chris, but a lot of like planning for like sort of 5 years, like, yeah, you can do it, but there's also so much you can do in 3 and 6 months. So I think the ability to be agile and adapt and change and understand that, but it's a different mindset. It's like what used to take you 2 years, you may be able to do in 3 months or 6 months, or in some cases, what took you a couple of weeks, you can do in a day, or what took you a couple. So you really have to embrace that thinking, which is, I think, actually a very, it's an intense shift to make because it alters reality in a really real way. But that is what is happening. And if you can sort of shift your mindset around it, I think you'll be in a really good position, and you'll be shocked by how fast you can grow, how many things you can do, how much reach you can have, and ultimately, how much more you can help your customers and create more value on the road. So that would be my last sort of thing to share.
Yeah. Listen, brother, it was, as always, wonderful to hang out and talk with you about this. But the next time, let's do it face to face so that we can be sitting down and then we could go out to dinner afterwards. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.